Yeah, thanks so much for your time,
My
Lawrence.
pleasure.
I know right now is a kind of mad time for you with how well Black Bear is doing. I seen it maybe at the start of the week, and it's something you really don't know what to expect. For you, how did the premise, how did the idea come about?
Well, I had been working, I've been working in film in various ways for about 20 years when I sat down to write it. I had been a very low budget indie director, writer, actor, and sort of by default producer for about a decade. And then I came to Hollywood and started to work as a professional screenwriter. So I was working with like, production companies, networks, things like that, because I needed to make a living, and all my indie films didn't really provide that. So I hadn't written anything for myself in about 5 years, and I'd written only with these more conventional Hollywood projects, which were fine, and I learned a lot through. But by the time I sat down to write Black Bear, I was sort of restless to do something different, because a lot of the stuff that I had worked on was classic narrative structure, 3 acts, 8 sequences. And I wanted to explore maybe a different storytelling strategy. So there was that element of it. And then there was also an element of just, I had felt that I had kind of reached a place in my career that I had always wanted, which was, to make a living writing screenplays and directing things. But by the time I got what I wanted, I wasn't so sure I wanted it anymore, because the cost of being an artist is actually pretty high. You have to make a lot of sacrifices. It's just a very challenging life path. So I think I was looking at that. I was reflecting on it. And also my relationship with my wife, and the ways in which our careers have kind of taxed our relationship. She's a filmmaker also, and we've made a lot of films together. So I think there was that, and I kind of really wanted to move forward and not be trapped in some of those old problems that we were having. Which isn't to say the movie's autobiographical, because we never treated each other that way or anything like that, or did the things that people do in the movies, but maybe underneath the same issues were at play on a kind of lower boil.
For you, it's not all biographical, like you said, but it's still a kind of very personal story.
Yeah, because I don't think I would have been able to write that movie if I hadn't lived through experiences that were at least relevant, or in some way similar, but not as heightened.
I'd read somewhere, kind of weirdly, that I don't know how true this is. Obviously, you can say. But I read that part of the idea you came up with, in a series of dreams that you then kind of jotted down and took from there. How true is that? And with these kind of thoughts that you get in the middle of the night or whenever, do you ever really get a clear sense of where a story like Black Bear is going to go, or is that a case that you get to the end, when you're actually kind of writing it?
Yeah, in the case of Black Bear, I really didn't outline exactly or know where it was going. I did have a dream that was the origin of part 1, but I can't recall the dream anymore, so I don't really remember what was I don't know how direct the translation was from the movie to the dream, but I do think that I had a dream that was similar to part 1. But it didn't end with a bear. I remember how that came to me, because I didn't know how to resolve the dynamics and the tensions that I had created. So, and I was trying to figure out a sort of climax for that. And I thought, oh, it would be great if they were in a car crash. And then I was just thinking about why would someone get into a car crash on this dirt road in the woods in the middle of the night in this area, and there's tons of bears, and they come out at night. So it was more pragmatic than anything. But then it occurred to me that it was kind of like one of those things where it's pragmatic, but it's also so symbolically relevant and right. So it's not easy to understand where quote unquote inspirations like that come from, but it was definitely the right thing pragmatically and symbolically, because for me, the bear is a symbol of death and rebirth because of the hibernation. And also, I guess more generally, the forces of nature or the dark forces of the subconscious or whatever.
You get real blend, you get that real blend in Black Bear of, the humor, the dark humor, certainly in some points, and then, that undeniable social awkwardness, especially in kind of, the first act, if you want to call it that. How challenging was it for you to strike, a balance between the both?
Between the two parts, you mean?
Yeah, between the dark humor elements and then that social awkwardness that we see.
Yeah, it was definitely something that the editor Matt Weiss and I thought about quite a bit. Was how much humor can the movie stand without detracting from the tragedy? And I think we arrived at a place that was satisfying to us. I mean, I don't think ever, when we show the movie to people for notes, occasionally somebody would say, I thought the humor detracted from the drama. But so I don't know, we got notes like that from time to time, and we thought about it. And we humor and tragedy coexisting is, I'm Jewish, and the tragicomic sensibility is a pretty Jewish trope, and it's familiar to me, and it doesn't jar me at all for humor and tragedy to coexist. So the movie reflects that.
Now, I've got to say that Aubrey Plaza, she's unbelievable. In this, you see her go through a tornado of emotion. In the kind of second part, what was it like, to see that unfold on set?
It was cool. I mean, I thought she could do it, so it wasn't surprising to me. But at the same time, when you're actually witnessing it, it's exciting. Really, one of the biggest thrills of my life, and I imagine other writers as well, dramatic writers, is to see their work performed at the highest level. So it's a thrill. It was fun and exciting. It was a little hard because, at times I felt like I was putting people, and her in particular, through some sort of emotional torture, and that feels kind of odd. But you just need to remind yourself you're making a movie, and this is the job that she signed up for, and it's your job to help her get where she needs to be and make sure that her performance comes off. So, but it was exciting. I mean, it was exciting. It was riveting, and there's so much of it like that people don't even know about that's on the cutting room floor.
Typically, films, whether it be indie films or the Hollywood blockbusters, they're not shot in sequence. I understand that at least part of Black Bear was shot in sequence. Was that a conscious thing you did, or was it more a case of scheduling, with the cast?
No, it's a little bit taxing on a schedule to shoot in order. But in this particular case, since we were at one location, made it easier. When you're making a normal movie that has a lot of different spots, the company moves take up a lot of time. So you want to shoot everything that happens in one location in as close a period as possible. Like if you have 12 scenes in one location, you want to do them all together so that you don't have to go to another location and go back to that one. The fact that we had I don't know if I explained that well, but the fact that we had one location, let's put it this way, saves a lot of time on moving the crew and all the equipment and everything.
And that location was brilliant. So secluded. Some great shots. The fact that it was a kind of intimate set, did that help with the cast and you guys and the crew bonding?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the cast. My experience, I was so busy during the shoot and so anxious. I mean, it was a really difficult shoot. We did not have a lot of time. The original schedule was 18, and then just from like bitching and moaning, I got another 2. So I think it ended up being like 20 days, and they were not long days either because everything's at night. We couldn't afford to tent the house. So we had 8 hours of darkness, and that's all the time we had to shoot. And a lot of movies, you go overtime. Half the days, you go to 12 hours or 15 hours or 18 hours or whatever it is. We couldn't do that. I think our days were 12 hours. We'd set up, we'd shoot for 8, and that was that. There was no overtime. So it was really quick. And I was busy. And the people that I bonded most with on the shoot were the producers, Julie Christeas and Johnny Bleistein, and the editor, who I watched dailies with every day before we started shooting, who's one of my best friends, just an old friend, and the cinematographer, because we would spend time together planning the shots. And then the actors, like, I just saw them when they showed up, and we worked together well. But it was also pretty fast. So any direction that I gave had to be like lightning fast. I had to boil what I was trying to say down to a sentence.
Yeah, and just one final question. I know pressed for time, Lawrence. Given everything that's happening just now, with the pandemic, what is it that you're working on right now? Has it given you the opportunity to write more and maybe go back to projects that were on the back burner for you?
It has. I actually had a lot of paying work that got postponed because of Black Bear that I was late to deliver. So the first part of the pandemic was catching up on all this work that I was contracted to do that I didn't that I had to postpone. So everybody was understanding, which was cool. But yeah, I had a ton of work at the beginning of the pandemic, and now I'm finally picking up work on my new script for myself to direct. And I looked at I have my notebook right here. And the first day of it, I started writing this on September 13th, 2018.
What can you tell us about that project, if you're allowed to say anything?
It's a romantic thriller. I'm really enjoying writing it. I think it's a more conventional movie in some ways, with a beginning, middle, and an end and everything. And I don't know. It's a romantic thriller. That's all I really would.
It'll be a relief to go back to the convention, I suppose, after Black Bear.
Yeah. Yeah. I always want to do something different than the last thing I did. So.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey